Welcome to Cut the Bull, an insightful podcast which addresses the news of the day and the cultural issues plaguing our society, bringing logic and context to these topics and discussing solutions too real for mainstream pundits. Now, here are your hosts, Charles Love, Shemeka Michelle, and Wilfred Riley.
Hello and welcome to Cut the Bull. I am Charles Love alongside my co-host Shemeka Michelle and Wilfred Riley. And our guest this week is Buck Angel, Tranpa, educator, entrepreneur, speaker, and self-professed male with a female past. Buck, welcome to the show.
Right on. Thanks for having me, my friend. I appreciate having the conversation.
Well, it's great to have you on. And obviously, we'll talk a lot about what's going on today around the trans issue, everything from detransitioning to puberty blockers, to kids, to blocking, all that good stuff, right? Yeah. And we may get into your experience and how you transition, but that's not where I want to start. Because what I'm thinking is, we all, maybe not Will, because Will's a little different because no, it's a good thing, Will, don't look at me like that, because, he's a professor and he's trained to talk about this stuff and look at the culture and analyze what people are doing, where we all kind of like, we were just living our lives and in some way got thrust into this because of something crazy happening. Just like, I got to say something about this because people are going too far. So I'm wondering, you call yourself Tranpa because you were one of the OGs, right? You did this long before it was hip. It wasn't even hip when you did this. And so how you went from, let's say, because it's been over 20 years since you transitioned. So let's say 19 years ago. So it was a few years after the transition, but well before you started doing anything else, you're living your life. And then at some point in the next few years, you decided, well, I should probably do something to help people, because I went through this journey by myself and you just got to fumble through it and not know what to do. So I'm going to start making some videos just to educate other people going through this. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you're into what we're in now and you're pushing back against stuff. And now you're a right-wing nut job. And, because everybody who disagrees with the crazies are right-wing. So you're a nut job and you got to say this, we got to stop this and all this kind of stuff. So what was that like doing that, and what caused you to decide to both start making those educational videos and start speaking out against what's happening?
Great. First off, thanks so much, you guys, for having me on. And so I transitioned 30 years ago, which I'm 60 years old. So I transitioned at 30 years old. That being said, when all of a sudden it just turned, it turned a corner. I mean, I have to tell you that what you see today was never part of the transgender community. And within the last, so one day I kind of saw it. So this is weird. I kind of saw things happening. Like one of the things that made my red flags go up was, you don't need gender dysphoria to be transgender. I'm like, you don't need diabetes to have diabetes. You don't need cancer. I was like, what? That is insane. Who would want to be trans? Like, this is not, as much as I try to make it look cool and I'm cool, it's still a difficult space to be. And I have a total disorder. So that being said, I was shocked. And I just kind of was trying to not be an old man, if you know what I mean? Like the old G, like, that's not how you do it. This is how you. So I just laid back a little bit and I just was like, oh, I'm mad at myself now, because I think I could have made a huger difference. And it just rolled out, my friends. It rolled out. And next thing you know, there's all these young girls, mostly young girls, saying they're trans men, and at 15, at 16, and getting chest surgeries and things that I'm like, but wait, you just said you were trans 2 minutes ago. You never showed any signs. You never showed any things. And, again, I just started feeling like an old man going, this isn't the right way. But then, no, when it comes to medication, when it comes to what this stuff has done to my body and the physical things that it has hurt me because of it, I just felt obligated on some level, and I needed to speak out. I'm sure in your communities, if you saw something that was just like insane, you just can't, you can't help yourself. You've got to stand up to it. And the hate rolled in, my friends. The hate rolled in from my own community that I have been serving for 20 plus years, creating, doing, talking, traveling the world, educating, it just came at me like, I couldn't believe it, you guys. I actually cried. I actually was like, what? They're canceling me. They're telling me I'm old. They're telling me I'm not worth anything, that I'm a POS. Like, I'm just, what? It was actually shocking. So that's kind of And then it just, I'm the kind of guy that if you push on me, I will push back harder. I came from that space, and you will not tell me how to be, and you will not tell me. So I pushed back on the community. And in some ways it actually did heighten me in my voice, because I was the one pushing back, because I could be that one. I'm a trans person. I can push back on it, right? I'm not somebody who's just coming into it or an ally. I'm a person, and like you said, an OG. So yeah, it's a lot, you guys. It's a mess. It's an actual mess.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna let Will and Shemeka get in, but it is weird. I mean, one, you just dropped the bomb out there. I thought we were gonna simmer to the dysphoria thing. Let's just stick this in the middle of the room and go with it. But okay,
that's right.
But which is one of the fascinating things you point out, and we'll get to that. But the other piece is, even in that community, for you, it was kind of a shock and sudden. I mean, I know for the rest of the world it was sudden, but I thought, you say you kind of saw it, but still, it wasn't like this.
No way.
10-year drag. It was like one day you were doing your thing, and the next day let's bring on the 16-year-olds, and then next month the 7-year-olds, right? It was just all of a sudden, and it was like, how dare you say something? But Will, what do you want to add? What do you want to say about his opening?
Yeah, well, first of all, Buck, good to see you on the podcast. I've actually listened to some of your speeches, and as a college man years ago, seeing some of your cinematic work. So it's
right on.
genuinely interesting to be engaging. But I mean, this to me, I'm a political scientist. I write mostly about race and warfare. The gender thing, except for occasional banter with the feminist girlfriend, wasn't something I thought about until the past couple of years. But yeah, my transition, if you will, there was pretty much the same as yours. It was the idea that gender is completely separate from sex. So, for example, you can be completely non-binary, and that you don't need to be dysphoric or to really go through that full 2-3 year medical process to be trans. And you put that better than I did, but that's also when I started commenting on this, because it objectively seems crazy. And this kind of leads into my question to you. So, I mean, gender, absent some kind of medical reason to engage with it, is just kind of where you fall on the Butler scale.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can be a masculine woman. You can be a feminine man.
That's right.
This is almost meaningless. I mean, I used to box and spar in the martial arts, but I also like to cook. I mean, many of my friends are gay or bi. So that's just a characteristic of, it's your personality profile to some extent.
Right.
So I guess the question would be, if you're talking about people being able to select a gender that's separate from dysphoria, one, and that's separate from sex, and that's separate from sexual orientation, those seem to be the big three that are getting rejected. Yeah. What does that mean? Isn't that I want one of the OGs to kind of comment on this. Is this just a set of sort of anti-feminist stereotypes, which is what I kind of think it is, or is there something there?
Honestly, for what I think is, it's just trying to push things further in this way, that everything is a social construct, right? Biology is a social construct. Women aren't real. You know what I mean? So I feel like that this idea is to sort of deconstruct what we all live in, because we all live in reality. I will tell you, I'm a biological female. I will never tell you otherwise. You all know me, and you know I'm very straight. If I'm not trans, right? Why am I here? Why did I transition to look like a man if I was not born female and look like a woman? So I can poke holes in all of their arguments. Then none of them make. I actually live in reality, and I could say, nope, you're wrong. But what they're doing is they're literally trying to get us to think of things as constructed, socially constructed. Now you can pick your gender, go ahead, I don't care. But the reality is you're actually still female, or you're actually still male, right? So the gender thing, the non-binary, it's the non-binary crowd that literally came into my space and took it, but they actually hijacked it. They appropriated it on some level. And these are the same people who go after you if you appropriate other cultures, or say they're just hugely hypocritical on so many levels. So that's the only thing I can say about it, because it doesn't make any sense to me at all. And I live in reality and logic.
No, that's pretty much what I thought. And I guess my only comeback to that, and not really to you, but to people that talk in this way, would be that I've never understood postmodernism, because it doesn't change shit about reality.
That's right.
So we just saw the president on TV talking about how 2 consecutive quarters of economic failure isn't a recession anymore. So we need to get into the economists, and it's a more complex, unknowable thing, and so on. But that doesn't change the reality, which is that by the old definition of recession, we just started one. So now the interest rates are going to change, and so on. So it's kind of the same thing here. Like, gender separated from sex doesn't necessarily seem to mean anything. Nothing. I mean, you can identify as a non-binary, for example, the Leah Thomas. Yeah. But like the Leah Thomas thing, you can identify as female and potentially non-binary, but that doesn't change the fact that you're 6'4" and male. So I guess the question is, what's society supposed to do about this? I think a lot of people will just begin ignoring it in a hostile way that's not good for actual trans and gay people.
Except they won't allow you to ignore it because we have people in office who are signing on to it, and they want to pass legislation to make it okay. And now we're in my, point of all this, which is the cultural push. If the culture is saying that it's okay, and shame on you if you say it's wrong, even if you're a transgender person, then we can say, well, we can let the kids do it because we think we're right. And if we find out the parents are against it, then we just don't tell the parents. That's how we solve the problem, or we just pass legislation that says gender identity. And it feels to me like gender identity, how you identify, is a whole nother level, especially when you talk about from how we operate the country legislatively, right? Because we allow that terrible Equality Act to say it includes how you identify. Then people can identify as whatever they want. There's no mandates around it. There's no therapy sessions. There's no surgery. There's no, you have to look a certain way. Like, I don't care what you think about transgender. You can think they're all evil, bad, whatever you think. You see Buck walking down the street, you're like, hey, dude, what's up? Right? It's what you do because that's what you see.
Yep.
Right.
That's what I wanted you to see.
Issue, and that's the reason why people transition, and they take their time, right? So you see men who are transitioning into women, and they got that awkward face when you're looking at them, like, it looks like a man, a man in a dress, because he hasn't done surgery, because he's trying to get to the point that he actually does it. But once that person takes the hormones and does this, and it's past time, and that person looks like a woman, you look at it, you like, that's a woman, right? That's right. So it only becomes an issue when you either try to force people to either conform to something, or you want to create a legislation that says a person can not do anything, not put on a dress, not, transition, not admit they have dysphoria, just say, if I got up tomorrow and just said, I'm Barbara and I'm a woman, and I go to work, there are people who want to pass legislations, who are you looking at, that says that now, starting tomorrow, you have to recognize Charles's, you have to recognize him as a woman. And if the next promotion, we were always saying we needed a woman in that role, and he was third in line as a man, now he gets the role.
That's right.
So there's those kind of things that's also they're not embedded in it, but they're the people who are pushing it are trying to put that in the system. And I think that's even more dangerous than what you do about. And lastly, it also hurts the way, what Will was pointing out, it hurts the way transgender people are treated. Because before, if think about it, here's a great example. So Buck transitioned 30 years ago. I'm sure when people found out, they had negative reactions, but most people didn't have a negative reaction because they didn't know. Yeah. Now there's a spotlight on it, right? So now it's like, oh, now these people are talking crazy, and they are. So they all must be crazy. So let's just treat it. So it creates this, negative backlash, like Will was talking. But Shemeka, you outside of having side conversations, seem like you're chomping at the bit. So what would you like to say?
Well, first of all, this is one of my daughters.
Wow, super
she
beautiful.
Also braids my hair. And so she was so interested in this conversation that she was like, I'm sticking around because I want to hear what's going on.
Standing in the corner.
Yeah, I have a gazillion questions. And,
roll out the scroll.
Yeah. And so, like, for me, when I hear Will talk about the, like, maybe the hostility towards the trans community, I think that's me, because I'm very like, you can't be trans because you can't, if you can't change your chromosomes, you can't change. But when I hear you talk, like if I met you on the street, I would refer to you as him because you have a beard, Your voice would throw me off. I'm like,
no, I have a horrible voice. Like, it's literally like I'm 12. I have a 12-year-old.
Right. But
I did think you were in a boy band, but I wasn't going to say that. That's
when I hear you talk, like I hear you saying, I was born a woman and I transitioned to a man. Like I have no problem with that. My problem comes with those that, like, if you were to just be like, no, I'm a man, and you
Trans women are women.
that, and you have to, you know, I would like, or if you try to date me and it's like, no, I'm a man. No, you have, I don't think you got the man parts. And I want that too. That's the question I have coming up. And so that's my problem. And I think that's where the hostility comes in for me, because I see biologically born men who want to say I'm a woman or want me to have to be referred to as cisgender or all these type of, I don't appreciate that. Like, as someone who started her period at 13 and have cramps and, you know, childbirth, you don't get to just join this at 30, even 20 years old. Like, you don't know what it's like to even feel ovulation, because that hurts a bit sometimes. You don't know what a cramp feel like. You don't know what your breasts feel like when they hurting and budding, you know. So that is where the hostility comes in for me. So I'm glad that I'm having this conversation with you, because I can appreciate you acknowledging how you were born and deciding that ain't what you wanted. You want to live as a man, and so you transition. That makes me a little more open. I will still chop down those that don't, but it makes me a little more open to like, okay, that's the trans. The stuff that we're seeing nowadays with people actually feeling like you have to accept this and call them this and that, that's not trans. That, and I appreciate you also saying, like, I have some type of disorder, whereas the other people won't even acknowledge that at all. And I appreciate the fact that you took your time, you talked to people about it, you went through a process. It wasn't like you just woke up one day and it was a fad. For a lot of these people, I think it's a fad, and what they're pushing on kids is they're not even giving the children time to learn who they are. I think about, you know, I look at groups like TLC or Escape when they first came out. MC Light used to dress in the, you know, combat boots and the back things. And I'm like, what would have happened to those females when we went through, even myself, going through the times where we wore the big plaid shirts or the big baggy pants? Would somebody have been saying to me, you might be a boy, you know? And that wasn't what I was into. Or my little cousin who liked to play with our next door neighbor on her stove and kitchen set. You might be a girl. When he grew up and he married a female and had children, and he's a man. So, you know, I can appreciate this. I'm going, hopefully we'll get to the part, these body parts, because I'm going to circle back.
Well, I just want to say thank you, friend. And this is how we build bridges. You know, I consider myself a bridge builder. And what I mean by that is I don't need to lie to you. I don't need to lie. First off, I don't need anybody to accept me. If you don't, that's cool. I just go the other way. It's totally fine with me. I don't have an issue with that. What I do have an issue with is lying. I'm not a liar, and I don't need to lie to you. And so I don't think that you're hostile. I just want to say that first off. You have every right to feel the way you feel. No, you're not hostile. What you are is a person who lives in reality. And you're like, wait a minute here. Some dude is like saying he's a woman now, which is fine. Go ahead, dude, be a woman. No one cares. But when you start to override actual female spaces, as you probably, I don't know if you know, I speak up loudly for women's rights. I was born a woman and I lived half my life as a woman. There is no way these dudes are going to come into this space, say they're women, and then just take it over, because that's just not okay with me. So that being said, I don't think in any way, shape, or form you're hostile. I think you want the conversation to come back to reality. And you just proved it. You said, you just accept me now. Whereas before, if I was going to be one of those, you would have been like, because why would you accept me? If I'm not being honest with you, why should you be honest with me?
Well, since you're talking about being honest, let's get to some of these questions. But before we get to, because who knows what Shemeka may ask you. So first, I want to ask more along the lines of what you were talking about lying to people, because those loud voices who are saying everybody who has a problem with any aspect of it, whether it's someone who's honestly transitioning, but they still have the testosterone levels and things of that nature, getting into sports, whether it's the age, whether it's the, but you want to have a debate about this stuff, that's fine. But why hide stuff from parents? Why lie about it? Why say puberty blockers are totally fine and there's no issue? Why say that, not talk about, like, I've seen some of your videos when you're talking about, let me tell you how my body changed and how this felt funny and all this weird. None of that stuff is fine. Everything is lilies, when you transition. You say you were a boy, you say you're a girl, and then everything is just great. Nothing changes, right? And you can just go flow through and all that kind of stuff. And they don't talk about that. So talk about highlight some of the lies that they say about when they try to tell you that trans women are women, or we're not doing anything bad to kids when we tell them. You can't even hold yourself. When we affirm that 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old may be a transgender, or the madness of saying we don't pick a gender for our babies anymore, because it's just keep going further. We're just going to call them babies until they decide, and let them decide what gender they're. So talk about maybe it's all true. So educate me. Tell me the
right on. So some of the things like that's just really just doing weird. Yeah, that's just weird stuff. I don't even know that has to do with transgender. So they're molding all these things and actually creating this huge transgender space. So before I move over, I want to let you guys know that I actually identify as a transsexual person. I'm not transgender. And I have made a huge voice around that. And that's why I've actually got people to start to identify as transsexual, so that we separate ourselves from the wingnuts, because the transgender umbrella, it's an umbrella term that encompasses anyone who wants to play with their gender. Yeah.
Shemeka's racing her.
Right on. I already love you.
Shemeka.
What is a transvestite?
Oh, right on.
Table now, like, is that?
I know, it's ridiculous. No, it's an actual real identity, and it's actually disrespectful to take that. They also tried to take transsexual off. So they're trying to control us in this community. It's become a controlling cult-like space. And that being said, how dare you tell me how to identify? I transitioned before more than half of these people have been around. That being said, transvestite is somebody that's mostly a male who wants to dress like a woman, mostly for sexual gratification, but doesn't want to transition and live full time as a woman, if that makes sense. They're taking that off the table.
RuPaul.
On some level, RuPaul's a transvestite. I don't think that. No, RuPaul's a drag queen. RuPaul's a gay man. So a drag queen is a gay man who dresses like a woman just for show. Like, remember they used to call them female impersonators.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
and
what
they used to
is.
only do it to do Liza Minnelli and Whitney.
That's
Houston.
right.
They used to be divas.
And so what's the difference in a drag queen
now they put
and a
money in the
transvestite?
G-string, which is weird. I don't remember Liza Minnelli doing that.
No.
A drag queen is basically just a man, often gay, who dresses up as a woman, and then you get into more different levels of attachment, for want of a better word.
That's right.
Actually, just segues into a very quick question. Like, Buck, for you as, I guess, a trans man at this point, but someone who's in the LGBT community, what do you think about the expansion beyond gay, bi, trans for a while? To to all these sort of spicy straight people.
Ridiculous.
Like half the people that have dated my friends in the recent past have identified as queer or something.
Unbelievable.
Like demisexual.
It's insulting.
Demi.
Well, demi is you wait a while to fuck, basically. You need to be attached to someone to want to have sex with them. And a standard proxy for demisexuality, this is not a joke, is that you have to go on at least 3 dates with someone before you want to sleep with them. This is often presented as a queer identity. Now, I swear I'm not making that up. But intersex conditions like Klinefelter syndrome, that's what the new sort of rainbow progress flag is. I mean, like the yellow square is intersex, and then there's trans and NB. So I guess the question is, what do you think of that? Are these people actually gay, or are they T or G or L?
I have no clue, but I think it's the most dangerous, messed up thing we've ever done to the LGBT. If you notice, I say LGBT community, because the QIA plus whatever, now they have every disorder in the book on the flag now. Like, you have a disorder, you're gay. Like, what are you talking about, people? And now it's gotten insane. If you even look at the flag, you can't even see what it is. It's like everything thrown at it, and it says vomit.
There's a bar for black people couple now. So I mean,
yeah, they added the brothers. That's always good.
Right on. Right on. But that it's a mess and it's not cool. And there's a lot of non-gay people coming, on some level taking on this queer label. Queer now is something else other than gay. And that's very insulting to my community and very insulting to older gay men who were bashed and for that word. And so they're but they don't seem to care about other people's feelings except their own, right? They don't understand that transsexual is a word that I use that I feel very connected to, that it's who I am. I had a sex change for lack of a better term, right? I had a sex change. I had a transition from living as a woman to living as a man. I am not a man. I live as a man, if that makes sense. I will never be a dude like you guys. I wished I was. And I don't want to be trans. I hate it. It's not something I want. I have a disorder. Right. So I feel like we're celebrating a disorder. Nobody celebrates a disorder. You take it on, you take care of yourself, you fix it, you move on. That's what I did. And now I'm a badass because I fixed it and I moved on and I don't live in that disorder. But when you live in that disorder, you take it on and everything becomes that disorder. And now what? You hate the world. That's why you see so much anger and hate. And if you don't accept me as a woman, then you're a transphobe. That's all. We have biology for a reason. Sports is segregated in biology, not gender. Biology, people. And the reason we do that is because you're stronger than me. Even as much testosterone as I take, I bet you would kick my ass in a bench press. Even though I work out, it doesn't matter. We have differences. And so I know why they're doing that. They're doing that so that those women could infiltrate into that sports space. And by saying trans women are women, you're now acknowledging that they're women, which means that anyone who says they're a woman is a woman, which is so disrespectful and rude, because everything you said, my friend, is true. I've had my period. I've had everything you have. I relate to you. The dudes here in this room do not, right? And nor does a man who becoming a woman will ever know what it means to have pregnancy, ever. I don't care how much you want it. You just don't know what that is.
Shemeka, I know you were going to ask a question. Just don't forget it, because I got to say, because you mentioned it before, and I want to make sure we don't lose that. So the gender dysphoria, one of the most controversial things that you say to the people who push back on you that probably upset them is the dysphoria, where you say, so talk about that, how nobody wants to be trans, right? So you're saying basically, correct me if I get it wrong, but I see it as, I am a woman. I see myself in the mirror. I see this woman, but it doesn't feel right. I don't like it. I get a visceral reaction when I see this woman. So I'm changing this to make myself happy, right? So you're doing that's the way you cope with your mental disorder, right? That's right. And so people just like, oh, so what are you saying? They have a disorder? You're like, yes, they do. And they're like, well, you can't just go around saying people have disorders, but they do. And I'm saying it because I do, but this is the way to live with it. What's wrong with that? And I think if people knew that, they would be like, okay. Right. In fact, here's one quick thing. I talked to Gina Roberts about that. And he said one of the good things was something about surgery. About covering it, like who's going to cover it? People are like, well, have your surgery, right-wing people, have your surgery, just don't make me pay for it, right? But then, okay, most people say fine. But then it gets to insurance, like, should the insurance cover it? And a lot of them will say no. And I say, yes, here's the caveat. Don't cover it as physical this, or we're doing it to correct a broken arm, right? It's not a medical procedure, it's a mental procedure. Because words matter to me. So if you classify it properly, right, the doctor did what they were supposed to do, and they decided that they confirmed that this person has gender dysphoria, and it's so severe that they would kill themselves if they lived as a woman. Therefore, I am prescribing these processes, then that should be covered. I'm totally fine with it. But when you say it as, well, trans women are women, so he's transitioning, so he's going to have the surgery and he's in prison, even though he's getting women pregnant. No, he wants to be a woman. So we're going to pay for, the state is going to pay for it, and we're going to cover it as a medical procedure. That's BS. I don't see how I'm being disrespectful or transphobic in saying that.
You're not. First off, you're not transphobic, okay? Because you topping a conversation with me. So I'll just say that straight off. You can have a different opinion than me, but that doesn't make you transphobic. It means that you have a different opinion than me. So we have learned in our community by being taught by certain people that anytime anyone has any disagreement with you, they're transphobic. They created that word as a means and a way to stop the conversation, right? So I'm on board with you, my friend, and I'm a trans person, okay? So how is that transphobic? So I agree. That's why I keep my space in a disorder, because not only does it get me my medical space, because I have a disorder. So when you want to, I always tell these people, when you take our stuff out of a disorder and you self-ID, that's elective. You've now chosen to have elective surgery. No one's going to pay for that because you're choosing it, right? I never chose this. So you can call yourself and be whatever you want to be, but I have an actual disorder. They get mad because they think having a disorder puts a negative spin on it, but it doesn't, because people accept me more when I explain to them.
But aren't they the same people that talk about mental health all the time? We need to do more for mental health, but then no one has a mental issue. Kind of weird. Shemeka, your question. You forgot.
Well, no, I didn't forget. I wrote it down. But so I would like to say, yes, I do think it helps people when you say that it's some type of mental disorder, because like earlier today, my daughter was telling me that I'm not empathetic. But when you put it in that way, I can empathize with that, because then I'm like, okay, this is something out of their control, something that no one would just sign up to be like, let me go through all of this that I'm going to have to go through. So it makes me feel like I can understand it better when you put it in that way. And then I would back any type of medical procedure that you need because you have this mental disorder. Like I would back anybody else who had something, you know,
schizophrenia. You wouldn't be like, you got schizophrenia, but you're normal on your meds. Well, like, you should just man up. Don't give them any meds.
Yeah, like I get that totally. But my question is, because I heard you say I had a sex change, and I want to know exactly. So I don't know if I should throw two questions in there, but because Charles can talk a lot and be long, go ahead and add in the second question. When you say I had a sex change, what exactly does that mean as a transsexual? And what you do with it, like, and who you do it with is what I want to know.
Great questions. And so I want you guys to know that I'll answer anything. I have nothing to hide, and I'm super open book. So that being said, so when I use the quote unquote sex change, it's because 80 years ago, that's what they used to call it, right? They used to call it transsexual, had a sex change. And so I use it in a way and a means for me to distance myself from that other space and kind of show you that I went from living as a woman to living as a man. I clearly did not have a sex change. You cannot change your biology, but it's a means and a way for me to sort of get other people who don't understand what's going on because they see the crazy lunatics, for me to sort of bring it back here, put it on the table and say, I had a sex change. Your brain kind of understands that in a way that says, oh, Buck was living as a woman and now he's living as a man. So I kind of get it. So it's not actually like literally I had a sex change. It's just sort of it's more useful for me to sort of explain where I'm living, if that makes sense. And then,
so you got your breasts removed, but
so I had
have a vagina?
Yes. So I got my breast. First thing I did, because I'll be honest with you, the dysphoria was more around my chest. Okay. Even though I didn't have big breasts, I still couldn't handle having boobs. And I used to do this strapping thing with like ace bandages and tape and all kinds of stuff because I had such a feeling of not wanting that. So that was the first thing I did. Then of course, I wanted to have a penis. I mean, a man has a penis. That's what you want. But they didn't have the surgery. And the surgery they had was so insane that I was like, they take a 10 out of your arm, they take all this stuff off, they mold it, then it doesn't even actually work. So I'm like, I'm like, wait, what? And you have to stick a stick in it, and then it gets I'm like, oh great, I'm gonna have sex, and I'll be like, hold on for a minute while I run and get the stick, and then I'm just like, that's not hot. That's actually weird. So I
need a few minutes to get ready.
That's true, but in a whole other way. Right. So I'm like, okay, I'm stuck with the vagina. I'm stuck with it. What do? I'm not the kind of dude that sits around and cries about shit. I'm going to fix it. So what I did is I accepted it, and I found partners who also accepted it. And, I'm married today, and I have a kid, and I have a beautiful, amazing life, and I've had a lot of sex. And people, I think because I'm honest, I've always been honest about my body, and I'm not going to go on a date with someone and say, oops, well, I forgot to tell you. Always from the get-go, like, this is who I am. This is what's going on. I've lost dates over it, and that's okay, because I don't really want to have sex with someone who's not going to be okay with the situation.
So are you married to a biological woman?
Yes, I am, to a biological woman. Yep, totally. Yep.
And so were you always interested in biological women?
Oh yeah. So even when I was a woman, I was a gay woman. So I was totally into women. And then when I transitioned, I still was into women, but then I got into dudes, which was also totally weird for me. I actually became like homophobic to myself. I'm like, I can't be into dudes.
Dude. Come on.
And then I started to have sex with men, but it just never was really my space.
they were gay men.
Yes.
Now I
Gay
got
men.
questions.
Yeah, right on.
So you're saying something about the gender, living as a man made you attracted to men? You were not attracted to men before.
Who knows?
You lived as a man, and now you're like, man. Now I look at myself in the mirror and see how good I look. I think I like it.
No, it's actually quite fascinating because I did a whole documentary on it. I started to film other trans men who the same thing happened to them. They were only sexually attracted to women, and then when they transitioned, they actually took on the identity of a gay man and they started having sex with gay men. And I was like, this is fascinating. I have hundreds of interviews with.
But that's a good thing
guys.
because if you talk to people, you find some similarities. So you say the norm. So is the norm for a woman who transitions to man to be a lesbian? The norm is that the norm
is that they mostly want to be with biological women. So yeah. So on some level, I'm a lesbian.
Is it the same?
And for men becoming women, that's an interesting question because I do see a lot of the transgender women. Those are men becoming women. Go to the lesbian space because I guess that they actually liked women. They were straight men before, right? And they just moved that across, and then that's causing problems.
That actually gets into like almost some of the scientific research here on things like autogynephilia. Like
that's right.
A lot of trans women seem to be men that were very into the idea of themselves like being had or dominated as a woman. Right. And who are very into, I mean, there's no such thing as female culture, but who are very into like the clothing, the style. Right. But when they, quote unquote, became women, remained attracted to women. So you'd have someone who looks like a woman, sometimes a very feminine woman, but who still has a cock and who's exclusively interested in women sexually. And that's what seems to be, as what you said, seems to be causing a lot of the tension.
Like it's actually insane because look, when I was interested in men and I would go to gay bars and I wasn't looking so masculine, I was kind of just in the beginning of my transition. So I was in that really kind of androgynous stage. And then, people knew, and the guys were not comfortable with me there. What would I do? I would leave. I'm not going to be in a space that I'm not welcome, nor am I comfortable in. But some of these particular trans women who are identifying as lesbians demand that space. They demand to be. You cannot demand anything from anybody.
I think Charles has a point coming up too, but this is something that actually seems to be a huge deal in like the urban lesbian community.
That's
like,
right.
My friend online and future in reality, Eva Kuralova, is someone who's actually become pretty well known as a journalist writing about this. But the idea is that if you're an AGP male and you identify as a woman, the thing that's important to you is that you be seen totally as a woman in terms of fashion, style, spaces, and you still like women. So you get all these questions. Like I think it was a Teen Vogue that ran the article recently, how to suck the girl dick or something like that. But the idea is that if you're a lesbian,
did you say Teen
you have
Vogue?
to sleep with
Did you say
any
Teen Vogue?
woman, and trans women are women. So you have this weird thing with like, you don't want to say these little urban lesbian chicks. There must be a more polite way, but like these women that are just straight up into women, riot girl haircut, skateboard 10 years ago, that are now being asked very frequently to have sex with dudes.
Even that
like
big.
A fourth of the people in a lesbian bar, the few times I've been in one recently, are biologically male. Because there aren't that many trans women, but there also aren't that many lesbians that are out that are not bisexual. So it's one of those things where just as an ordinary citizen, you would look at this and say, this is goddamn ridiculous. Lesbians women. But where there's this very serious moral debate within a certain community of woke people.
That's right. No, you hit it all. You said it all.
Zillion questions.
Shemeka, you're going to get me.
What is a female? How do you do that?
You weren't first. Who's
the boss?
I'm going to get in so much trouble. Look, what Will said made me think of something else. I interviewed a transgender woman, and we were talking about the thing that we hear about, which is a tragedy on whatever level it happens. But we were talking about how those people who are pushing the transgender thing are saying that so much transphobia and how there's so much violence in the transgender community more than others, like people are killing them or whatever. And I asked if that was true, and they said in some cases. And so what was interesting, what Gina told me was that in some cases, but you got to understand, some people aren't like Buck, and particularly in the trans women community, where they're dating men and they're living as women, but they're biological men, and they're not upfront. And there are a lot of times when you do the research, you find that they weren't telling them. And so the guy discovers, and that's when the physical things happen. And they say a lot of that tends to happen.
Yep, that happens. That's called disclosure, right? It's like you disclose if you have HIV before you have sex, or you're an asshole, right? Or you disclose that I disclose
that is legal now in your neck of the woods, right? Didn't the governor say that?
Yeah, right. It's like I disclose I have a vagina before we move forward. No big deal. That's like rude. It's actually rude for me not to say that to you. It's that why wouldn't I tell you that? Because I do look like I have a penis, and there's no doubt about it. And so that's what you're expecting. And when that doesn't pop out, it's actually going to make you upset on some level. I'm not saying you should kill me or you should kill somebody, but I mean,
you won't though.
But it doesn't mean you won't. That's right.
Imagine the stigma of a guy who's straight, and then now
imagine a man.
Yeah,
that's
it
right.
makes me mad when a man is supposed to have a penis and it ain't working quite right. So you know.
Let me send you some of my boner drinks. I'll fix that in 2 seconds.
You were gonna ask something, Shemeka?
No, I'm just agreeing with.
No, you said you had another question.
She forgot.
Go to your list.
Go to your list.
Oh, right. So, okay. I saw that you had this sex toy where you put what looks like a little small,
like a tiny little penis. Like a penis, yeah.
A tiny one that
I
chuck the deuces over. And so I'm trying to figure out what it was to help trans men masturbate. When you have this disorder or whatever, is it that you strongly hate your female parts so much that you need to do something different? Because I'm just like if you're masturbating, you're masturbating.
Right.
Does it cause you to just, like when you just said you had a lot of
dysphoria
over your breast. So do women who are trans men have such a hate for their female body that this is actually something they need or look,
Yeah, no, I totally understand. Yeah, it's called, I had this distance from my vagina because I really wanted to have a penis. So, masturbation is a great thing. It's an important thing. But if you don't want to touch yourself, how do you masturbate? And then that's really what a lot of us were dealing with. And especially, myself, I can speak for myself. I just couldn't masturbate. And then one day, I think I got really stoned or something. I don't really know what it was, but I just was like, oh, I'm just going to masturbate because I was really horny. And I touched myself and I had an orgasm. And I was like, what? I'm not getting a penis. This thing is amazing. I'm taking this for a ride. And then as I got more into my body, I created the first transgender male sex toy in the world called the Buck Off. And the Buck Off, it's right here. It literally is right here.
Oh, yes.
It fits over. So what happens is I take testosterone in my clitoris, right? Our clitorises can be in variation of size, but mine grew to the size of a very small penis. And so you stick this thing over top of the clitoris and you stroke like a man. So it connects to your brain and your genitals and you're literally kind of stroking like a dude. I always wanted to stroke like a man. I know it seems really kind of whatever, but it's so important. And it really just changed my life. And then that became one of the fastest selling sex toys on the market.
One last question, Charles, while we're here. So because you're married to a biological woman and you still have female parts, then when you have sex, y'all scissoring? Or
that's awesome.
Use a part that,
we do everything, my friend. That's the cool thing about it. And that's the cool thing about dildos and strap-ons and toys and fingers and mouths and all kinds of things. We don't just have basic sex, right? We figured out how to have sex where we both get pleasure and we have a great time. So yeah, I mean, there's many things.
You're not against scissoring, although you don't like your vagina.
No, I actually no, because I don't think of it. It's like weird. When we have sex, I'm not even thinking of it as a vagina. Neither is she. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's just us having pleasure, us having fun, us being very, sensual with each other or eroticized. Or it's not just wham bam, right?
Okay.
It's mostly just really kind of enjoying ourselves and our bodies. And that's what I want people to see. I don't feel in any way disconnected anymore from my genitals. And it's really exciting and awesome to be able to have sex without that feeling.
May I,
Okay.
Shemeka?
Now you can.
So I want to get to the kids, but before and what they're doing there, which is a whole nother level. Before I get there, one other thing, you push back against this stuff because it seems so extreme, and sometimes the simplest reaction is there. And I didn't think of one that made me chuckle because I didn't think about this until I watched one of your videos. So Buck has these videos where he's talking to other transgender people that, like I mentioned earlier, I've been through this. Let me tell you what your body's going to do. And one of them, it was a simple thing, right? It was about somebody says it's hurt when my doctor told me to take my testosterone in my thigh. And it really hurts.
Right.
And he's like, I don't do this, I do it in my butt. So that didn't help me. I'm not transgender, but maybe for some reason I didn't think about it before. The light bulb came on. And I said, wait a minute. I know these people who keep saying trans women are women, they're all the same, are wrong, but they try to equate it to the biological women and men. But I'm like, I never thought about this before. But no matter what they do, not only was Buck born a woman, but you have to keep taking testosterone. So I'm like, well, wait a minute. So you're talking about people who have to take, I don't know if it's daily or weekly or whatever, but you have to take this drug continually, like forever. Like you've been 30 years ago and you're still taking it. So how can that person say that they are literally biologically the same as a woman or man and they're taking shots to stay that way?
Well, that's the absurdity of it all, my friend. They're gaslighting. That's called gaslighting. They're making it so that you can't have an argument, but I always keep saying, I'm not arguing with you. I'm telling you facts. Stop saying trans women are women. Trans women are trans women. Why are you having such a hard time? That's right. Also, you're a different type of woman. Why don't you celebrate that, right? Celebrate it. And when you start to celebrate who you are, you start to understand, I don't need to be a woman. I can be a trans woman. Guess what happens? Women start to respect you more when you start to not try to take their space. That's right. They're trying to take over female space, literally calling people with uteruses, people with vaginas, people with periods. I'm like, you know what? Pardon me, go F yourself. That's not true. People don't get periods. Actual women get their periods. What are you talking about? It's an erasure of women. Why aren't they doing that to men? Why aren't they saying men? Why aren't they calling men spermorators or, testicle havers? Or because men would never let that happen. Testicle havers, you're right, or sperm shooters. Like what? Right. Yeah, it's rude. It's actually rude.
So that lends itself, as we talk about the kids and we get to what they're doing and what they're pushing. Part of the problem, but just pushing in general, not even the kids, is let trans people do whatever they want to do. But we've gotten to this point what offends most people, I think, more than what Shemeka as a woman. I get the visceral reaction because what's happening in sports and taking their spaces. They're not trying to take my space. But what I find is that the average person is offended by the fact that whatever, you got to have understanding, empathy, and care about people, right? And if Buck is going through this thing, we need to do what we can to help Buck. But that's not what they're doing. They're not helping Buck or people like Buck. They want to change the system for a very small percentage of people. Look, they go around talking about BIPOC all the time, and most people are like, that's not really going to help. It's silly. But to be fair, BIPOC people collectively, if you put them all together, Mexican immigrants and Black people and all this other stuff, 30, 35%, 40% of the population, LGBT is 5 and less. If you're talking trans, it's smaller. So why? So it's not disrespectful to trans people to say, well, hold up, bro. You don't get to create the laws and shift the federal government just to give preferential treatment to 2% of the population or 5% of the population. Treat them equally. Do not allow them to be abused. But no, we don't have a mandate that you say a pronoun. I would say that it's disrespectful to say she and keep calling you whatever your name was. That would be disrespectful if I knew what it was. But at the same time, I shouldn't go to jail for doing it. You should just say Charles is the dick and then go on about your life. That's right. But they want people to go to jail for saying stuff. They want to introduce kids to choosing your pronoun. And like seriously, maybe I get this wrong. But even if I give them that argument, if the point of the pronoun thing is to say, well, maybe I look like this, but I want to be a woman. So I should say she, her, so you know that I want to be a woman. Okay, whatever. But now we got people like Kamala, people just being silly and saying, you're clearly a woman, you're a straight woman, you live as a woman. Why do you need, and everybody who sees you sees a woman. Why do you need to say she, her? Everybody was going to call you she, her. right? It's silly. It should, in fact, even if we were doing it, we would only do it with the people who look one way but identify the other way, which is they don't want to do that because it'll show how small that percentage of
That's right. You got it, dude. I don't even need to tell you. You actually got it. It's a control mechanism. It has nothing to do with trans in any way, shape, or form. It's actually about control, and they're trying to control us in our language. You know what happens when you change when you start burning one kind of book, then another book gets burned, and another, but then next thing you know, we are out. So that's why this is a slippery slope. This is called controlling language, right? So I had to change to look like a man. I'm insulted if you ask me my pronouns. It means my sex change sucked.
Right.
Totally.
I need my money back. But then why did the trans community go along with it? Why aren't the rest of them like you saying this is?
That's a great question. Because if you notice, the majority of this new trans community is young people. Okay. So that's why on some level, I look at, I'm that conspiracy guy on some level as well. And I believe a lot of this is money oriented. And I do a lot of my research. I'm not just sitting here. I do due diligence. I look at stuff. There are a lot of money involved in the future of trans medicine, billions. They even tell on stock market websites, they tell you to invest your money in trans surgeries, in trans medicine. It will be $1 billion industry in the next 5 years. It actually is in writing. So I'm like, hey, wait a minute. So on some level, I do see this idea that they're trying to create more numbers. When you create more numbers, you create more power, right? And so they're using children. They're actually using children, which, as you all know, I'm completely against, and I'm very outspoken about.
Can the children be trans? Are there trans 8-year-olds?
I'm going to disagree with that. I'm going to say that an 8-year-old might have dysphoria. I don't call them trans kids because the minute you start calling them trans, you've literally shoved them into a space, right? It could be a gay kid. He has this child has some form of dysphoria around. I want to be a boy. All kids do that. I have a 10-year-old kid. You don't think he has long hair. Sometimes he wants to paint his nails. He's not trans. He's a dude. He's just that kind of dude, right? So I'm saying you got to let kids be kids, and they don't know. I personally, I could have been a trans kid for sure, or whatever you want to call it, right? But that being said, you can't shove a kid down that medicalization space at 8 years old. You're making a huge mistake. I don't care if he's trans or not. You're going to mess with the kid's biological space, which is brain stuff. When you start giving medicine to a child, you've now medicalized that child for the rest of their life. Gross.
Right.
Yeah, one of the distinctions here actually seems to be between sort of mental illness treatment or medical condition treatment, whatever that is, and sort of the move toward full normalization of this as, in some ways, a superior alternative to being quote unquote cis. The US and Canadian model right now is that if a kid says that they identify as trans, like I'm having some gender challenges, or even just like, I think I'm a girl, past like the age of, I think it's 6, the solution is complete affirmation. So you're actually supposed to use the kid's preferred pronouns. You're supposed to pick specifically a trans-friendly psychotherapist or personal care physician, and you're moving the kid forward into this sort of world. This is your new gender identity. And I get, there's not necessarily a question here. There seems to be a really sharp distinction between that and saying like, sure, some people have actual gender dysphoria. There are countrymen and women, so they can live however the hell they want. We'll be polite to them. But the idea that if someone at all identifies as trans, society should try to make them trans seems to be kind of the new place we've gone with this. And you're going to see some major lawsuits and backlashes to that.
It's already happening. It's already happening, my friend. I know you guys know the UK, their Tavistock, which is the biggest, right? Now it's shutting down. Number one, now they're releasing all this information that they did. I knew it. And all of us knew it. And we've been hounding it, and it's all coming out, my friends. And you watch all the doctors who are pushing these young people. How can a 13-year-old have a chest surgery? How can a 16-year-old have chest surgery and they don't put the nipples back on? This is disgusting and wrong. And I'm very out. They're not putting nipples on
nipple
these.
thing. When you said that blew me away. I'm like, what?
I know.
Why not?
Don't men also have nipples?
So she's all, why not? So they're telling these kids that, oh, you don't need your nipples. Yeah. It's too much. It's too hard to put them back on. So just go right ahead. I'm like, that is actually unethical. You need your nipples. Also, what if these? Oh my God, I could just go on and on. I'm like, wow. Wow.
Well, the next stage of this also would be the idea that there aren't just two genders, Rube. Like you can get surgeries to become any one of a range of things. So something that female friends of mine have talked about, actually, and none of them ended up going through with this, but is sort of slicing off basically your vaginal lips, breasts, maybe making your eyes look a little epicanthic, but you want to look like an alien.
That's right.
Princess. You don't want to look like a human at all. Now, this has been without exaggeration done less than 10,000
my
times.
friend, it's happening. It's called nullification surgery.
Who are Will's friends, Shemeka?
And that's the thing. Like, if you accept
who are your friends,
FOMO, you can be anything. So it's not just like you're saying, I identified as a man, so I went through medical procedures to look like a man. Okay. Right. But what if you identify as a wolf, to pick the most common other can identify?
Shemeka did a bird on one of the earlier episodes.
Yes, I did.
Birds of prey.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be the next thing you watch. It's money. It's money, you guys. There are surgeons who are doing 5 what they call top surgeries a day at $5 or $6 grand each pop. Who's paying for it? I mean, there's so much money in this. You know how much it costs for these kids to be on puberty blockers? It's like $45,000. Who's paying for this? Right. And
oh my God.
It's insanity, you guys. And also, they don't have long-term studies. In Finland and Sweden, they've been doing it for 30 years. They stopped. They said, we do not see it's a positive outcome for these young guys being put on puberty blockers. So they stopped it while the United States upped it. Right. So, and Canada upped it.
And then Will
kids in the hood are going to be safe.
Sorry?
Kids in the hood are going to be safe. They can't afford 45.
That's a great, you know, and the other thing is, if you look, the majority of the trans young youth are all white. They're all white from very like middle class to upper class families. It's a very in that
so
space.
In that case, it's probably not just a money thing, even though they do make money. There's another layer. It's probably another way to tear down the patriarchy. We don't like these wealthy people, so we can attack their kids. That's just another feather in our cap. But Will mentioned something about how the problem is for the kids, you have to affirm it.
Yeah.
But it's also this weird thing where they traipse them around as little fake trophy people like they're real people. It's not just like, so little 8-year-old Bob wants to be Lisa and we need to deal with that. Okay. And it's not just that we want the class to affirm it. I don't know. Now you're forcing my 8th grade, my 8-year-old into that group. But now they're taking the kid into the front of the class and having an assembly, bringing all the kids in the school to the auditorium and say, I just wanted to make an announcement and let you know that Bob is now Lisa, is transitioning, and we're going to affirm it. So now what if Bob changes his mind? But he's like, now there's pressure. Everybody kind of knows, so I'm just going to roll with it. And he sticks in it maybe longer than he wants to. And so that's the problem. It's not just affirming it. They go when they go crazy, they go full crazy. So it's not just like we're going to affirm it and protect them and you know, wrap them around and make them feel safe. We're going to say, no, you need to do it. And how quickly can we get to the doctor? And that's the problem. And nobody seems to be willing to push back and stop it. So I guess we should say, how do we ask you what your thoughts on it, how we do something about this, you know, talk about, you know, I'm sure you've interviewed and you talk with detransitioners and what that is like when it does get to the point they did it too long and now they changed their mind. I don't even know, Shemeka asked you about, you know, what you did and that kind of thing, but I don't even know, you know, you've been, let's say it's been 7 years, you've been taking this medication for 7 years, you had some surgeries. How much can you really get back? I've seen some stories. I heard some people like, my voice never went back to whatever, and I never really looked whatever. So talk about how
it's devastating. Devastating. And I my heart hurts. You know, my community, I have used that loosely, just literally pushes them to the side, doesn't want to talk about, literally hides them. So I equate that to very cult-like behavior, right? If you're in a cult and you leave the cult, what happens? They ostracize you. You're not allowed. That's exactly what's happening with detransitioners. They're ostracized. So they created their own group on Reddit. There's over 35,000 people in this group of detransitioners. Wow. These young people were told they were trans by a 45-minute intake by Planned Parenthood. Then the next thing you know, they're walking out with testosterone, shooting that. That's a controlled substance, people. It took me forever to get that stuff out. So thank God I had to go through a system. There is no system. This is what you need to understand. There is no system. Anyone can get testosterone. Anyone can go have surgery. You do not need to have a note from a doctor. You do not need to go to a psychiatrist. You do not. You can literally self-ID at 16, go to Planned Parenthood. These kids are 17, 18 and going, oh my God, I cut my breasts off. I had a hysterectomy. I have no nipples. I have a beard. I'm not a chick. I'm not a dude. I'm an actual woman. And they want to kill themselves. They want to just die. They, you know, I'm like, why are we doing this?
They're traumatized twice.
Oh my God.
They obviously had to be traumatized to decide to want to do this. And now you can go back, right? It's like gender dysphoria on acid. It's like a whole different level. Right?
You know, if they would have taken the time to do some mental health care with these kids, they would have known they had some trauma. Maybe they had some sexual abuse, which a lot of them comes to find out there's a lot of sexual abuse involved in there. You know, they don't have a good home life. They're looking for a space to connect with other people. It's the cool thing to be now. We all know that. It's the actual cool thing to be is trans or non-binary or, you know, cat identity, or go to TikTok. It'll fucking make you throw up. It's so disgusting. These kids are just emulating these things that are actually destroying their brains. And all the adults, where are the adults? That's what I want to know. Where are the adults?
Afraid to speak.
I am holding people. I have a list. Don't think I don't have a list of doctors, surgeons, all of them. I'm going to hold every single one of those people accountable. This is not okay. They need to go to jail. All of them.
Right.
All of them.
So what do we do besides convincing? We Shemeka now learned that she's not transphobic, so that's good. and
right
you do your wonderful work speaking out. But what can we do? I mean, some people are afraid to speak. So what do we do?
Thank you. Well, first off, you did something. You brought me on. So whoever your demographic of people listening who don't understand, which I don't blame you. By the way, anyone listening to this, if you're been called transphobic or you don't, I don't blame you. I don't understand how you would understand, and I don't understand how you would have compassion or empathy for somebody like me when all you're seeing out there is those people who are so mean and rude and disgusting and not telling you the truth. So I want to assure you, there are people like me who really need this medicine, who can move forward in the world. We don't want to push against you. I want to coexist with you. I want to hang out with you. I want to be part of the world. I don't want to push on you and make you give me everything. I want to be a part of. And so you need to understand there's a lot of people like me who are also scared to talk out. But that being said, the fact that you bring people like me on and actually have the conversation says it all. You're not transphobic. You just want to understand some weird stuff that's going on that is not okay. And I'm in agreement with you, and I'm part of that community. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's really what we need to do is we need to start having the conversation between us, because those people don't want to have a conversation, and that's fine. I'll have the conversation. And then me having the conversation creates another trans person coming forward and creating the conversation, right? And not being fearful.
Well, I definitely appreciate you. Shemeka, I know you had a list. I don't want to go without letting you ask at least one more of your 74 questions.
Well, first of all, Buck, you're my new best friend.
Right on.
So I guess, you know, like when we have these conversations with people that insist trans women are women or trans men are men, like even if we come across someone who is confused or they're considering, like, what are the instructions for them? Like, do you say, well, maybe you should go and talk to, you know, a psychiatrist or college, you know, what do we say? Like, how long should this transition take? And I think we should be concerned when they wake up one morning and they're just going with a fad. But let's say my children, and I'm sorry, God forbid, were to come to me and say, I think I'm a boy. Mm-hmm. What would be my steps as a parent to make sure my child transition properly, opposed to just throwing them out there and saying, well, here's a pair of baggy jeans and, you know, breast up in an ace bandage or whatever, go out and be brave. What would I say as a parent to help that person transition and to transition right or in the most safe way that end up having a breakdown or, you know, want to commit suicide? Like, what do we do?
That's a beautiful question. I appreciate that. So it's hard for parents now because they're getting such mixed information, and they're getting this information that, like, they tell parents, if you don't transition your kid, they'll kill themselves, right? They're using this weird language. That's not true. So there's a thing called affirmative therapy. First off, never go to an affirmation therapist, because that's not therapy. They're just going to stamp the thing and say, oh, you're trans, move on forward. Right. That again. So what I would suggest is finding a therapist who's maybe versed in LGBT, or not even that, just somebody who's a child psychologist, because that's the first and foremost thing. And that's what's missing. And I went through 10 years of psychology, psychoanalyzing, all of it until I transitioned. So not to say you need to go through 10 years, but it was the best thing I ever did, because I worked on my inside before I worked on my outside. We're working on the outside before we work on the inside. Huge mistake, right? So that's the first and foremost thing. To any parent out there who's struggling and your child says, I'm a boy or a girl, fine. They could feel that way. Then tomorrow they could change change. We all know kids, and kids do not stick to what they a lot of times they're influenced. But so psychologist or a therapist or something is the first and foremost thing you have to do with that child, and also love your kid. And that's it. You don't have to be mean or ugly or any of that. You just need to say, okay, let's go check it out and let's see what's going on here.
Will, any last thing you want to add?
No, not really. I mean,
it's all been said,
good
right?
Summary, good conversation so far. Yeah, no, I mean, it's
right on.
Yeah. I think that actually I will say that last comment from Buck, though. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said. I've said this in like 8 or 9 podcasts, but there's a lot to be said for sort of obvious common damn sense.
That's right.
Like if your kid who's 8 or 9 comes to you and says, I think I'm a member of the opposite sex, and I think I've figured out my sexuality for life. You don't have to be abusive with them. There's too much hands-on parenting in all the communities that I know, Black, Appalachian, so on. But definitely, I mean, just sort of use common sense. Maybe you need to go to the therapist. Are you having any other problems? Are you going to a tough new school? Let's sit you down. Let's talk about this one. Let's see if this is here in a year. I read recently, I don't quote this as much as I otherwise would, because I've never found any support for this. I don't know if it's true, but I read recently that the average time that someone identifies as transgender in, for example, high school is like 3 months.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's an extraordinary amount of fluidity with this. Like when I was in high school, every quote unquote cool girl was bisexual.
That's right.
Era. You're supposed to be. It's true for whites, blacks, whatever. But I mean, and now it seems to be a bit more of this. If your daughter says this, I mean, don't cut off their breasts and give them a fake penis. You know, give it some time.
Give it some time. That's with anything, especially kids, man. The fact that, so it should give everybody out there, everyone a red flag when you start putting medicine in a child to only change their physical attributes. Think about what I'm saying now. They just want to make sure this child doesn't have female attributes or male attributes so that when they transition surgically, it's going to be much easier. So I'm like, but what about the brain? Don't you want the brain of the child to be more solid? Who cares about, look at, I fixed it with surgery and testosterone, right? So what? But my brain is solid, right? If you start giving that medicine to a child, you're literally destroying their brain and their bone density and their health. It's ridiculous. Yes.
Shemeka.
Do you have any advice, Buck, for the men that can't quite grow a beard? You know,
testosterone shots.
You heard it. All dudes can get testosterone. It's like actually, I'm 60, man. I feel like I'm 20 because I shoot testosterone every week. I don't have testicles, right? So I have to like inject testosterone every week, and that it keeps me sort of young on some level.
Some of them have testicles and still don't have much testosterone. Let me tell you.
You don't want them. I don't want testicles. I'm glad I don't have them.
We had to leave on Shemeka note. Well, Buck, we learned a lot here. Thank you for your time and educating us. And
yes.
Buck Angel, female, past, living as a man, transpop.
Right on. Love you guys. You're awesome. Thank you guys so much. Right on.
Thank you.
Right on. Thank you.
To say, God bless the US of A, land of the free and a home of the brave. God get all of the praise. I got a country to say, cause I'm Patriot J and I'm saving a day.